Liz Crosby here with the astral forecast for the week of April 12th through April 18th. And we've got quite a week up for karma clearing, karma purging. And it's best to understand how these energies work with us so that we can work with them instead of fighting them. So we just finished up the new moon in Aries. We still have that residual Aries energy going into Monday. But the moon will begin to wax, which means that it will lessen in its gravitational pull. So we will start to see the seeds that we've planted assuming that we've been practicing throughout daily practice, we will begin to see the seeds of proprioception sprout as we continue to hold space and as the moon waxes. Now, of course, when the moon moves through Taurus, we are going to, as we will be every time the moon moves through Taurus, get zapped by the moon conjunct Uranus in Taurus. So a lot of energy with Taurus coming in. Of course, we have also Venus moving into Taurus, and that's great energy to have. But again, it reminds us of the fixed aspect self, the fixed in earth element sign being Taurus. So the first really big transit aspect that we will experience is on Tuesday, April 13th, when the sun is sextile to Mars and Gemini. And so this is kind of an ongoing theme. It is exact on Tuesday, but of course we're being bolstered up, much like last week. We're being bolstered up in our endeavor to reconstruct, rebuild the divine masculine within ourselves. So it's time to take the initiative. It's time to set aside the time each and every day to start getting upside down more often and using our mental faculties, our intelligence to communicate between body and mind. Of course, a lot of astrologers are saying this is a good time for communication. But when we're talking in terms of spiritual astrology, we're talking about how can we integrate these energies and take them inwards. So we are being tasked with flipping ourselves upside down so that we can emerge out of the upside down world. So that involves doing the inner work and transmuting the shadow aspects of self. And nobody is going to eat the karmas for us. We have to take the initiative and invoke solar plexus, whose element is fire, to burn away the impurities. And of course, Aries is associated with the head. So don't forget headstand, right? Not just handstand and forearm balance, and eventually graduating to one-armed handstand, one-arm forearm balance. Another various parts of the body can be utilized as the foundation, right? Such as the chin, or such as the side of the face in a chin stand or a fallen angel. But we are also keeping in mind the headstands. So, of course, when you are doing headstand work, be cautious of your neck. If your neck ever starts to talk to you, take a break. Those muscles are slowly coming in. They are much smaller and minute, so be patient with those muscles. Then on Wednesday, April 14th, we have Venus moving into Taurus, as I mentioned earlier, and this is its home base. Venus is at home in the sign of Taurus, so it should be a nice moment of reprieve. It should almost feel very safe and secure. And again, we are also going to experience that conjunction eventually, not right away, but that conjunction between Venus and Uranus. Of course, Uranus is parking it in Taurus until 2026. So this is going to amplify that energy and remind us of how important it is for us to actually start taking ownership of our karmas, predominantly the upper half of our sphere, which has been largely neglected for centuries, millennia, and getting ourselves upside down, right? The long-standing joke with the Uranus-Taurus transit, get Uranus up in the sky, appease Cronus so he doesn't have to castrate you, right? Cronus being Saturn in the Roman pantheon, associated with hard work. And of course, we still have that ongoing square between Uranus and Saturn in Aquarius. So this is a constant nudging from our solar system to start doing this work. And then April 15th, we have the sun sextile Jupiter. So again, a lot of sextiles. This is very good energy. It's helping to bolster us in our endeavors. It's helping to provide that supportive energy. And Jupiter is associated with expansion and abundance. So a lot of people are saying, of course, this is the tax date. So this is a good sign astrologically for taxes. But what are we concerned with as yogis? We're concerned with paying back our karmic debt, so like our karma taxes. And the universe does not forget. So the body holds absolutely everything. All of the inventory is held within our physical being. So the physical body, it does matter. And we're being given a nice supportive energy to do precisely that, to pay back our karmic debt and to establish a routine in which we can continue to pay back our karmic debt while still, of course, we're not all breatharian, we're definitely not pranarian, and so we do need to still make enough money to make ends meet, to pay for food and to pay for gas and to pay for a roof over our head and provide a safe shelter within which to do this work. But we do want to start to slowly work into our lives a routine in which we can consistently see growth happen, especially in the upper half. Again, I can't emphasize this enough. The upper half it's been largely the space in which the Anunnaki and the Archons, interplanetary or interdimensional aliens can harvest energy from us. So, and again, they're continually harvesting energy from us until we start to do this work. Also be aware too that as you do this work, you may incur an attempt from these dark entities that are harvesting energy from us to secure their source of energy. So be aware of that. Don't necessarily broadcast as much as maybe you would like what you're doing. Only work and interact with people regarding this information. As long as you can check in and tune in with your intuition, you know that they are a conscious co-creator, right? So anyone could potentially turn into an Agent Smith is what I'm saying here. And the spiritual jargon has been broadcast and blasted throughout the collective consciousness. So a lot of the spiritual terms people may say, but they don't always actually mean it authentically with their actions. So always look to the actions. But this is a good day. Very, very supportive. Again, multiple sextiles. We need all the help that we can get, right? And as anyone knows, it's even begun this journey to work into handstands. It's challenging to say the least. And it's easy to give up. And so many people in the yoga community have almost chastised or scrutinized the inversion practice as being egocentric or narcissistic, which is entirely ironic because, of course, we're trying to work towards selflessness in order to run energy up through the upper half so that we can utilize the sattvic gunas, throat chakra and brow chakra for processing and witnessing. So hopefully these energies will help us substantiate these important courses of action, karma yoga, and we won't be as attacked by our communities. So unfortunately, that's a thing that we need to look out for if we are working within the yoga community. The yoga community does not necessarily want to work into one-handed handstand. We only have a few people that are capable of doing one-handed handstands in the yoga community, and unfortunately, they're not receiving as much light as I would like. I wish that they were receiving more notoriety online. There's one guy, Hung Yoga, who's incredible. He's starting to work into one-handed handstand, but again, nobody knows who he is. Adrian McCavitt, he's another one who's working into one-handed handstand, and he's incredible, but again, very small amount of followers. I see Dylan starting to work into one-handed handstands, so that's good, but I just saw an Instagram account that makes fun of yoga instructors that do handstands, and he was mentioned quite a lot on that Instagram account. So we still have a ways to go, and it is really challenging to, again, speaking of Jupiter, to make money and also do this work. And I'm definitely having to sacrifice some of the more lucrative aspects of the yoga career, and it feels like taking a leap of faith because I am being heavily stigmatized by the community, and I've actually stopped working. And oh man, 5 studios now. I used to work at 7, now it's down to just 2. So and I really let this be my catalyst for change, and I allowed the tower moments to happen. And it seems so simple, and it really is. It's like, okay, is this yoga community willing to accept the work that I'm doing, or are they going to create resistance? Because it takes so much work, it takes so much energy to do this work, that if there is resistance, if there is drag, it's very, very noticeable. And again, people may not say that they have a problem with it, but they may energetically intimate that they have a problem with it. So just be aware of that, and see it as a fortuitous moment if you recognize that a community is not accepting of this work, because we very much know our work. It's very plain and simple, it's clear, it's concise, the messages that we're getting from source, the messages that we're getting from the astral transits. And if someone is in disagreement about that, that is okay. They're not ready to do the work quite yet, and see it as a fortunate moment where you can part ways and you won't have to hemorrhage energy to that person or place anymore. But again, I'm hoping that this week, right, we only have the North Node in Gemini for so much longer. So I'm really hoping, really over the course of this year, that we're able to make it known to the collective that these universal laws, these fixed aspects of self, cannot be negotiated. And hopefully we can all start working together instead of having to deal with all of this infighting in the yoga community. The acrobatic community is all on board. In a lot of studios where they practice aerial arts, silks, lyra, straps, and hand balancing, a prerequisite is being able to hold a 2-handed handstand for at least a minute. So they're not at all at odds with this. It's actually quite necessary, because if you can't, then doing other things such as deep back bends and contortion, or taking your practice up into the air in silks, for instance, those things then become quite hazardous and could jeopardize the integrity of your body. You are prone to injury at that point if you don't have a significantly strong central core. So it's time for us to grow up out of these shallow parts of our field. And in so doing, our third eye will activate and be able to process and witness with much more vivid clarity. So ironically, but not coincidentally, the physical will lend itself very nicely to the spiritual, to the multidimensional analysis of karmic debris, which is absolutely paramount, absolutely necessary. If we want to purge these karmas, they must be witnessed. If they're not witnessed, there is a residual that remains in the field. It's like weeding, but only taking the top of the weed off and not going for the root. The root is going to grow back, and it might in some instances grow back with even more voluptuousness, right? It might grow back into a bigger weed. So we really want to make sure that we're going all the way down. They call these seeds, right? We're born with all of these seeds. And so that's of course why it's best to start when we're younger, because those seeds haven't had a chance to germinate yet into these distortions that yield illusions of separateness. But nonetheless, we got what we got. We're working with what we have. And so wherever you are in your age, and in terms of how many times you've revolved around the sun, it doesn't really matter. If you reincarnate, you're just born with the same karmic signature. So let's just start where we are and keep doing the work. And So that's good energy going into April 16th, wherein we get a square. So the square, I love how an astrologer I was listening to calls it trying to break out of the box. So of course squares provide tension, and we do need tension. Sometimes tension is a good thing for this alchemical excavation that we're all engaged in. Of course, if you're listening to this, you're engaged in it. And this unearthing of the flower of life in your sphere of existence, right? The multifaceted, layered, sacred geometry that yields the Sri Yantra over time. So the square is between the Sun in Aries and Pluto in Capricorn. So yes, we are finishing up our round in Aries. And as we finish up Aries, there is always a square with that Pluto and Capricorn for a little while longer, because of course Pluto and Capricorn is going to go retrograde pretty soon here at the end of the month. So the square is going to create some tension, and it is reminding us that what is our job as caretakers of the universe, as owners of a small fragment of the sun, each of us having within us the sun of solar plexus. Our job is to hold that space and to take initiative and to move the earth element into its proper arrangement so that the sun can travel through the cardiovascular system and illuminate the whole sphere of our existence. So this square, of course, is going to remind us of all of the space that is currently not being held. And it's a lot, and there's a lot of unnecessary pain and suffering that has come to pass and that is currently happening and will continue to happen, because it takes a certain amount of time to rearrange the gunas, and we can't just snap our fingers like Thanos and be holding the perfect sphere. It doesn't work like that. We have to slowly rearrange the gunas and take our time, because again, this isn't just about fitness. This is also about gazing inwards and processing with multidimensional analysis the limiting thought forms that come with not holding that space. So it could be a tense moment towards the end of the week. But thankfully, we have, again, Gemini, Mars and Gemini trine Jupiter in Aquarius. So it's, again, I think we have an opportune moment this week to communicate to the collective the importance of holding space and not negating the physical body, the earth element, which is the most dense element. And all of the elements, all of the gunas, right? A guna means a wire. So these are the wires that strap us down, that wrap us to the wheel of the karmic wheel of suffering. We need to learn how to work with the wires so that we can disentangle ourselves from this karmic wheel of suffering. And it is much more beneficial if we all work together in this endeavor, right? So instead of, again, the infighting in the yoga community for, more classes on schedule as a yoga instructor, or who's better at, whatever postures, or whoever has more followers, that all needs to end. We need to just let all of that go. Besides, there is no comparison, because we're literally all the same self experiencing itself. So that is just problematic energy that is perpetuated by the dark to slow us down. So hopefully, come the end of the week, we're able to communicate the importance of actually holding this space and not just utilizing the yoga practice to get what the ego wants. And we do have to be careful of this, of course, when Aries is in the chart, and we do have the sun Aries. So watch out for that. The ego is very cunning, and we have seen, of course, how the ego uses medians, especially like the spiritual community, to get what it wants. So for instance, I definitely had to put an end to teaching acro jams, because a lot of people that were going to the acro jams were using the acro jams as their own personal Tinder. They didn't have an individual practice. They weren't gazing inwards. They weren't processing karmic debris. And they weren't respecting the other people that were coming to the Acro Jam to expand consciousness in their sphere. So I put an end to it immediately when I saw that that was happening. But that happens over and over again in the yoga community, in the spiritual community. People using the yoga community or the spiritual community for their own self-seeking gain. So we have to put an end to this tendency. And I think that by all of us acknowledging that the sacred geometry is the common denominator, of course, how you decide to dance into every corner of your sphere of existence is completely up to you. And everyone is going to have their own unique, diverse way of going about doing the Tandava dance, which is it really has to be unique to each individual. But nonetheless, we have to all agree upon this common denominator so that we can all work together to expand consciousness in each our own spheres of existence. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting day. It might feel a little bit heavy, even though the moon will be waxing towards full. And the next full moon, by the way, is going to be in Scorpio. So mentally prepare for that. And then April 17th, we have quite a lot going on with Mercury. So hopefully, I don't know, maybe I might do another YouTube video or something, but it is going to be an auspicious time to communicate. And this could be an optimal time to communicate these fixed aspects, these common denominators that we are all working with, so that we're not fighting against each other, and so that we're all working together to expand and to raise the collective vibrational frequency. So there is a sextile between Mercury in Aries and Jupiter in Aquarius. There is a sextile between Mercury in Aries and Mars in Gemini. So again, it's this communication about how to work intelligently, how to work smart, and how to expand. And again, we will also have the square, as Mercury will be finishing up its transit. It will be also squaring Capricorn. So we'll be receiving this communication from Pluto about how not holding that space has caused all sorts of unnecessary grievance throughout human history. And you can almost see it. I'm sure that some of you have been following me for a while now, and you can see how us completely neglecting the whole upper half of our sphere has landed us where we are now. So it's very frustrating, because it's like we are literally sitting on a gold mine. We're literally sitting on our infinite potential, and we're choosing not to connect to it by simply standing and sitting upright, which is just ridiculous. It's ludicrous. When all we need to do is flip upside down. What does horoscope mean? Hourglass. So we're flipping the hourglass. That's what's happening right now. And the universe is giving us, the solar system is giving us as much support as it possibly can right now with these transits. And yet people are still choosing to completely disregard their karmic duties and what they initially chose to incarnate in here for. And again, I get it. I definitely put off inversions for a really long time. I even went through a bout of depression after college when I realized the importance of holding space in the sphere. And I kept arriving at this conclusion over and over and over again in different philosophical studies and different philosophical doctrines. And by the time I got to metaphysics, it was so abundantly clear that I could not deny it. And then finally I decided to actually get upside down and do the work. And then of course, soon after figuring out how to hold a straight up and down handstand in a scorpion, I was able to do past life regression work. So of course, I'm not going to offer that to others. I want you to be able to access your own past lives for yourself. I want you to be able to see and witness so that you can purge. This is my qualm with Reiki and energy healing. Of course, if you want to go and do Reiki or energy healing, it's always a good idea to feel what it feels like. But you yourself actually have to witness. You yourself have to do the energy work on yourself for it to be a sustaining and effective form of clearing. Otherwise, the limiting thought forms go back into their previous old spin cycles and the distortions continue to persist in the field. And so on the 18th, Sunday, the very last day of the week, we have a Kasmini between, of course, Mercury and the Sun. So this is, again, if you got anything left in your tank, you gotta just put out and get it off your chest, whatever it is that you want to say. This is going to be the Sun's last conversation before it moves into Taurus, and it's time to actually grow these seeds, these intentions. So this is going to be quite the week. And again, I myself keep hoping that the collective is going to catch on, but again, we can't hold our breath. There's going to be resistance. We've all become so accustomed to standing and sitting upright life, and there's a lot of darkness that we don't want to look at, because we want to just assume that we can keep living in this way. But if you've gone this far into this video, you know we can't. We know that we can't just keep standing and sitting upright. It sounds so goofy, but it's true. We need to start actually taking account of our karmic debris, right? Again, like I mentioned, April 15th being the tax day. It's time. It is time to pay back these karmas. We don't want to hold on to them anymore, because if we hold on to them any longer, or even worse, if we continue to accumulate more karmic debris, that is not going to land us in a possible world that we want to be in. So it's going to come down to a small group of us around the world doing this work. But I have full faith that by, again, actually creating a time and a place in our schedule and making it a routine, we can slowly pull the collective consciousness into higher vibrational frequency realms. And eventually the truth must come out. The truth must make its presence known. So, but we have to stay true to this course. We have to stay true to the Karma Yoga, to the Kriya Yoga, and continue to unearth our royalty to the Raja Yoga. And the truth will make its presence known, probably most likely through reactivation of the cities, the superhuman powers. So again, as I've mentioned before in previous videos, that a collective Shaktipat is probably going to be what shocks the rest of the collective into realization of our oneness, and actually compels the collective to do this inner work, to clear these stagnant energies. But again, we can't hold our breath, and don't wait for the collective. If you're listening to this, it probably means that you're meant to be doing this work and elevating the collective field of consciousness. So it might mean letting go of some of the old dreams that you might have had. But once you're able to access the Akashic, you can go up and come back as literally anyone. So usually we create our dreams, the ego creates its dreams. This is more so speaking to Neptune and Pisces, but the ego really creates a lot of its dreams from comparative analysis with other people that have existed either alongside us in the same time-space continuum or before us. So if you want to, you can go up and you can experience whatever dream it is that you want to replicate in this lifetime as the actual person that you're seeking to replicate or mimic. So that's kind of one way that I've been able to assuage any tensions or any desires that my ego has to fulfill certain dreams in this time-space continuum, because the dream now is a collective dream. It's the dream to realize the new earth, and the only way to do that, the only way to bring about the new earth is through the new human. So be sure to set aside that time each day And I really do think that if you're doing this work, that's probably the best communicator, right? It's much better, as I aforementioned, to speak with our actions rather than with our words. So, but hope you have a lovely week and enjoy the waxing effect of the moon. Keep practicing, keep holding space, and keep loving everyone and everything as the same self that it is. Namaste.